Good afternoon, fellow GCSE students. I say fellow, I'm not doing my GCSEs this year, clearly. But this is for you if you are doing AQA GCSE science and you are doing separate sciences, so you're doing biology, chemistry and physics, and you're doing higher tier, okay? So this is for you. If you're doing foundation tier, go and check out the other video. If you're doing trilogy, foundation or higher, go and check out that other video. So this is the last in 4 sessions that I'm doing today on the most important topics that you need to revise for your exams this summer. Now, these are not predictions, okay? It'd be like trying to predict which way the coin is going to land when you flip it next, okay? But what we can do is look at what topics are the most common or have been the most common throughout the years, and so therefore you can focus a bit more effort on revising those topics. So I wouldn't recommend just revising those topics, but these are certainly the key areas in which you're going to gain the most marks, so therefore that revision is more important than other types of revision. So there are 2 things that we need to focus on here. So I've basically done all the legwork here. Like, as I've built Sidekick, I've come up with these stats, okay, and they are facts, all right? So one thing you need to be able to do is, obviously, you can focus your revision on the key areas which come up every single year, and I can help you do that. That's why we're here today. We're going to be talking through every single paper, so biology paper 1 and paper 2, and the same for chemistry and physics. The other thing that you need to focus on in order to make your revision more effective is obviously focusing on the things that you personally are not good at. Okay, so that's the other thing I'm going to help you with today, is how to figure that out and how Sidekick can help you do that. Okay, so I will be talking about Sidekick part way through this, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I'm here to give you the information that I found out by analyzing all the past papers. I say all. 2023 data is not included in this last year's data purely because they're not released to the public. We're not allowed to show any information based on that paper. But between the first exam in 2018 and the 2022, we've got 5 years worth of papers to look at, and that is really important information. So we're going to get straight stuck in here. Now, I'm going to give you a lot of information to look at here, and I don't want this to overface you. I'll talk you through what that information means, just so you know where I've got my information from. I'm not just pulling this stuff out of thin air. I'm actually using real information from the past exams, so you can see the information for yourself if you don't believe me. I will talk you through what that is in the first slide, but after that, we're just going to focus on, I've pulled out 5 key things, 3 things for you to do and 2 practicals for you to focus on in terms of your revision for each paper. So I've broken it down into the most important things, but of course you can use that data if you want to further down the line to check out this video again, you know, it'll basically be here whenever you wanted to watch it, okay, once it's done. So let's focus on biology paper 1 first and foremost. So firstly, what's all this information? There's a lot of information here, Rich. So what we've got is the list of topics that appear in biology paper 1, okay? Now, that list of topics for each of those, through all my kind of analysis of these papers, I've basically tracked every single mark that's been attributed to each of these topics. So this is the total number of marks over 5 years that have been attributed to that topic. This is the number of times it's appeared in 5 years. So 5 is the maximum. If it's 5, then it's been in every single year. And then this is the average number of marks for that topic per paper. So remember, it's an average. So it means this could have been 35 one year and 10 the next, but an average is a good indicator of where you should put your efforts when it comes to revising. Now, the last thing I've done here is make an importance factor. That is basically the total number of marks multiplied by the number of appearances, and that tells me how important that topic is for you guys to revise. So if obviously the topics that are most important are the ones that carry the most marks and come up a lot. So that's why I've done that multiplication to find the importance factor. The last thing you need to know about before we move on here are the 4 different question types. Recall is essentially your classic revision. Name this, label that, describe this, explain that. Things that you just need to remember. That's the information you're going to get from your textbooks, from your notes, from using your flashcards, from making mind maps and things like that. Classic revision, okay? So those are the things that are going to help you recall bits of information. And those are the questions that are basically what you're revising for, are those questions. Next up, and I've got to explain this one, this is deduction questions. I've come up with this. Basically, they're questions whereby you need to have some knowledge. That's fine. But you have to use information in the question. It could be facts, it could be figures, it could be a graph. Basically, just using information and a bit of your knowledge to answer the question. You can't revise that using a textbook and mind maps and flashcards. The only way you can get better at those deduction questions is by doing questions, okay? And that's why I developed Scikit, because I realized there's such an emphasis on this, and students are just not revising in the right way to get those marks. And that's very often where it's really frustrating, where you feel like, you know what, I've been smashing the revision and yeah, I'm still not getting the marks. I'm not improving. It's because of these, okay? So practicing past papers is the only way you're going to get better at deduction questions. Now, lastly, we've got calculations. Speak for themselves. Got to get your calculator out and do something. And then draw plot are literally like questions where they give you some information and you just have to plot a graph. That's it. Okay, that's a skill in itself, but I couldn't think of where else they belong, to be honest with you. It's not recall, it's not deduction, no, it's not a calculation. You just have to plot a graph, right? So that's the other thing. So you'll find there's fewer marks attributed to that. So you can see here, by far and away, the most important topic for you to revise is animal tissues, organs, and organ systems, okay? Now, that is my number one thing for you guys to focus your efforts on, is the names, the functions of cells and different tissues and organs and so on and so forth. I'm also including plant tissues, organs, and organ systems in that as well. So between these, on average, okay, there's 39 marks on average in your paper one just on those two topics, okay? And a lot of it is recall, but a lot of it is deduction as well, okay? So learning that stuff and practicing those questions is hugely important. 39 marks is, well, it's 39%, it's 100 marks. That is a huge portion of your paper. And actually, if you look at the grade boundaries, that gets you a grade 5 if you get all those right, okay? And don't answer anything else, okay? So that's the first one. The second one I think I want you to focus on and be good at are these calculations here. Calculations on cell structure. Let's just clear the decks a little bit here. Calculations on cell structure. That's microscope questions. So be able to convert or calculate your magnifications using the eyepiece lens and the object lens. Also converting your units from micrometers to millimeters to centimeters and whatever you need to do. So changing some units is also very important there. What else to say, actually, guys, is if you've got a question, pop it in the chat. I'm here to answer your questions. So the third thing is know your respiration types, okay? Now, the reason for that is this, okay? So with respiration questions, which come up a lot more in the higher papers, you know, knowing what aerobic and anaerobic and how that links to active transport as well, okay? Active transport is really, really important because it links to the transport in cells. Very, very important, okay? So know your respiration types. They're going to come up in the exam. They come up a lot, and be able to write the equations for them and all that sort of stuff. And obviously, you know, they'll give you situations where maybe somebody's running a marathon or doing weightlifting or whatever, you know, what type of respiration is being used. I'll give you an honorable mention here. Communicable diseases. Okay, comes up every single year, average 10 marks per paper. Oops, excuse me, I've clicked over to paper 2. An average and 10 marks per paper for communicable diseases. So that could be HIV, it could be malaria, all sorts of stuff like that. So make sure you revise those really, really well, okay? So those are the top 3 things I want you to focus on. Now, the last thing, and I've got this for each paper, are the practicals. So you've got your bacterial growth, okay? That's where you get like a Petri dish and you've got your bits of paper and they kill bacteria because they've got antibiotics on. You need to measure which is the most effective antibiotic and this, that, and the other. So focus on those sorts of questions, okay? They come up all the time. And the other biggie is photosynthesis. And that's where a lot of these marks lie. Okay, the light intensity one where you have to change where the light is or like the distance of the light and how that affects the rate of photosynthesis. The pondweed one, basically, okay, where they're producing oxygen bubbles and you need to count the bubbles. So those are the top 5 things for biology paper 1. Now, the last thing I'll say here before we move on is actually about practicals. Now, very important, okay, for every practical you do. be able to recognize two things. Be able to recognize your variables. So that's your independent variable, your dependent variable, and your control variables, okay? Be able to look at an exam question, and Sidekick can help you do this, actually does help you do this, and be able to spot what those different things are, okay? The other thing in practicals is being able to improve it. So they like to ask you, how can you improve the accuracy of this? So be clear on what that word means. How can you improve the repeatability of this, or reliability? Okay, so they do like asking these kind of general practical questions about variables and about accuracy and about reliability. So be clear on what each of those words mean and how you can improve those, generally speaking, in practicals. So that's how you should revise those practicals. And again, there's no substitute from doing questions, okay? Especially where these deduction ones, if you see these deduction numbers being really high for a particular topic, like in respiration, like in animal tissues, organs and systems, and even this one, transporting cells, there's no substitute for doing past paper questions, guys, okay? So that's really, really important. So that's biology paper 1. Biology paper 2, okay. So you can see here, we've got 3 topics that are head and shoulders above the rest in terms of their importance, and that is organization of an ecosystem, reproduction, and a human nervous system, none of which are related, but they are related to things down here, okay? So organization of an ecosystem, trophic levels in ecosystem, you can probably rely on those questions are going to be kind of mixed together, but obviously one is more important than the other. The other ones are reproduction and hormonal coordination. They kind of link together very, very well, especially in terms of like testosterone and luteinizing hormone and progesterone and estrogen and all that stuff. And the human nervous system is your other big one, which links, well, it's just on its own really though. So those are your top 3. So first thing, recall. Okay, recall. So classic revision, but focus on these top 4. Why? Because look at the number of marks that have been attributed to those over the years and the total number of marks, the average per paper there as well, okay? So knowing in terms of organization of an ecosystem, knowing your different trophic levels and stuff like that, reproduction, knowing your hormones and the names of things and labeling things, human nervous system, but again, being able to label synapses and reflex arcs and different neurons, and again, hormonal coordination, know what all the different hormones do and where they're produced. Okay, so there's lots and lots to learn there, and that's biology in general. So many of the marks are attributed to recall in biology. I've already done TikToks on this. Go and check out the TikToks on my channel, and I'll show you like how the 3 subjects compare with these different types of questions. Biology is very much about recall with a fair bit of deduction in there, okay? Next up, population calculations. What do I mean by that? Well, by that I mean these, okay? So lots of calculations attributed to organization of an ecosystem. So quadrats, basically, quadrat calculations, calculating the area of things, calculating averages, and so on and so forth. So make sure you can do those. There's no substitute for doing questions on that. And then using data in questions, lots of practice here. Now, whilst there's a lot of marks attributed to recall, obviously there's a lot of marks attributed to deduction questions, especially where this is low and this is high. Okay, so obviously you're going to get fewer recall questions on variation and evolution, but they're going to give you an animal or something that you've never seen before, and you need to look at it and look at its features and think, okay, how has it evolved? Okay, why has it evolved to have those features and so on and so forth? So you're going to get things that you've never seen before. You need to work with that to kind of work out the answers. So that's where, again, past paper practice is hugely important. Now your 2 practicals are population practice quadrats. I've already mentioned that. Okay, that comes up all the time. So know how to increase the randomness of where you put your quadrats. Know how to calculate the averages and estimate what the population is. And the other one is actually plant hormones and tropisms. Now that doesn't actually, it does feature quite highly up here, but it's mainly practical questions they give you on that. So it's the classic one where like a plant's growing, okay, you got a shoot growing, and you just put light from one side, okay, that's coming out of there, and it will kind of bend towards the light. That one. That's the one I'm on about, okay? So that comes up a lot. So make sure you know your way around that practical and practice those questions, folks, okay? So if you've got any questions about biology, stick them in the chat for me. But other than that, we are going to move on to chemistry. Now, biology, there's a lot of topics. Chemistry, there's even more. I just want to point something out to you before we go to chemistry. These top ones, okay, up here, these are the ones that come up almost every single year. But then there's a huge drop off with these. Look at these, like only half the time they come up, all right? Look at the difference in chemistry. There are more topics. I mean, look at all these. I mean, I'll zoom in as best I can. But look at all these topics in chemistry and look all the way down. There's a bit of everything every single year almost, okay? So you can see that you need to spread your revision in chemistry a bit more. And the only way to do that is by working through papers, okay? So what are the top things here in chemistry? Well, first one, know your acid reactions, atomic structure, and your way around the periodic table. Hugely important skills that, okay, and things to learn, because look at this, reactions of acids, reactivity of, atomic structure is here, 25, and periodic table, 31. So in reactions of acids, know your equations, okay? Know your equations. It will make your life so much easier in the exam. Atomic structure, obviously knowing all the different particles, knowing how that relates to the periodic table. So obviously the number of shells is what period it's in, the number of electrons in the outer energy level is how many electrons, what group it's in. So knowing your way around the periodic table, all that stuff about Mendeleev as well. Those are the top 3 things for you to revise, okay? And make sure you know what things are and how they work. Next up, no surprise here, mole calculations. Boom, look at this. Amount of substance, okay, and equations and so on and so forth. Lots of different calculations with that one involved, and also with reactions of acids actually, but that's more about, that's linked to mole calculations as well. So knowing your mole calculations, I mean, you kind of knew that anyway, but this is the evidence. This is where you see, like, on average, there's 10 marks per paper. So 10% is going to be on your mole calculations, not to mention, like, the other calculations as well, okay? And then lastly, redox. Now, why have I said that? Well, because it's important for, excuse me, get rid of that one as well, reactions of metals, okay? That's really, really important for that one. And it's important in, where else are we? Electrolysis. Yep, sorry, that was the other one, right next to it. So redox, oxidation is loss, reduction is gain, oil rig, all that. Make sure you understand that, because it's going to form a huge part of your exam. And you can see here, between these two, that's 18 marks on average for these two things, and it's all about redox, okay? So reactivity of metals, working things out, okay, using redox, even bigger than remembering what things are, okay? So again, past paper practice, guys, all the P's. Now, when it comes to the another P, practicals, preparation of a soluble salt. That is the one where, for example, you take copper oxide, you add it to sulfuric acid, heat it slightly, it goes blue, and you keep adding the copper oxide till it's in excess, then you filter it, then you evaporate all the water and you get your crystals. That one, okay? So that comes up all the time. And then measuring the temperature change of a reaction, that's very much linked to these two things, which is reactivity of metals and exo and endothermic reactions. These two things, let me just highlight those better. These two things, exo and endothermic and reactivity of metals, they come together, okay? So you can say, okay, this metal's more reactive than that one, so when it reacts, it's gonna give out more heat. Okay, so that's what we're looking at there. So be prepared for those two questions together. So, you know, measuring the temperature change of a reaction comes up all the time in terms of practicals. Now, secondly, for chemistry, again, lots and lots of topics. There's still a huge spread here, most of the way down. So there's a kind of a little bit of everything in here, but you can see there's much more emphasis on the deduction side of things compared to biology. So, rates, graphs, and calculations, absolutely top of the shop here, okay? Rate of reaction, just look are all these marks attributed to this, and the average number of marks on rate of reaction per paper is 16. 16% of your paper is going to be on rates of reaction on average. It could be more, it could be less, but that's an average, okay? And that's why it stands so much higher than anything else in terms of importance. Next up, alkenes and alcohols. Boom, know that. 23, okay, so that's an average of 8 marks per thing, per paper. So make sure you know the reactions of alkenes and alcohols, because it's in every year and is going to be easy marks. If you can remember it, if you learned it, then it's going to be easy marks for you. The third and final kind of highlight here is learn how resources are obtained. Now that is this bit, okay, that one there. 33 marks, okay, on average 9 marks per paper. Earth's resources and obtaining potable water. Know how we get drinkable water from different sources. Know the stages of the purification process. They can ask you to regurgitate that or recall that. Or with these types of things, they can get you to like compare the different methods, like which is the quickest, which you think is going to be the most expensive, which is the best. So, learn those. They come up every single year. So it will be easy marks for you if you've learned that in the exam. Now, any honourable mentions here? Yes. So honourable mentions to these two. Okay, so carbon compounds as fuels and common atmospheric pollutants and their sources. So carbon compounds and fuels and feedstock, that's about fractional distillation. So know the different fractions, what they're used for. And common atmospheric pollutants and their sources. So atmosphere, know your atmosphere, okay? It links very much with this one down here, of course, but know your atmosphere. That comes up all the time as well. You can see 5 out of 5 so far for that one, okay? So sulfur dioxide causing acid rain, carbon dioxide causing global warming, and so on and so forth, okay? Now your practicals for paper 2, goes without saying really, doesn't it? Rate and concentration, it's massive, all right? It's there every single year, and the only way to get better at these practicals is by practicing those questions. And the second thing is actually testing for ions. That's this bit, okay? The identification of ions by chemical and spectroscopic means. So many things, so many marks attributed to what you can remember here. So know your different flame test colors, and know your different tests for ions in solutions. So like your sulfates and your carbonates and your acids and things like that. It's not a massive amount of revision, but it kind of punches above its weight when it comes to the number of marks attributed in each exam on average. Okay, so that'll be my other thing. And of course, they link it to a practical side of things. So as I say, there's no substitute for practicing questions, okay? And you'll get so much more confident by doing that. And it's because of all these deduction, these calculation questions and things like that. And, when you've got so many things like chemistry to revise, that's where Sidekick really, really helps you. So I'm going to spend a few minutes showing you now about Sidekick because, like I said, one part of the problem is one part of the solution, I should say, is actually knowing which topics are the most common and the ones that come up the most and carry the most marks. And you can just give a bit of extra effort to those topics, which is why I'm showing you this today. But of course, the other side of the coin is, what are you not good at? Okay. And if you're not good at something, you need to get good at it, especially if it's one of these really high scoring topics that we've been looking at in these exams. So I'm going to spend 5 minutes now just showing you Sidekick very quickly, because I know we're here for other things, but I want to show you how this will help you when it comes to your revision, okay? So we're going to go over to Sidekick now, and I'm going to show you the 2 ways in which Sidekick can help you. So this is the website. You can sign up. It's just no subscription or anything. It's 25 quid. In fact, it's going to be 20 quid for you because I'm going to give you a discount code in a minute. And that gives you access to the 1st of July. So obviously, if you like this, you want to speak to your parents, that's absolutely fine. If you've got any questions about it, you can access the contact form on the website. You can just ask me any questions you like. But when you sign up, it will sign you up to whatever you're doing. So, this is us at the moment, isn't it? Separate science, higher tier. This is what I'm signed in at the moment. So first thing we do, if you want to practice a paper, now very often with papers, and revising past papers, when you're doing a question, right, and you think, I don't know this, I don't know how to do this, then that's where Sidekick comes in to help you, because it gives you a clue, like a cue or some guidance and some descriptive guidance on how to actually answer that question without giving the answer away. So it's designed to kind of like just ring a bell. It's just kind of like, here's a little bit of help, a little bit of a hint here for you. Because that way it's like, oh, it's that, is it? Right, okay. And then, so you do know how to do that question. It's just about asking, the right questions of you. So I built this basically, I think, right, if a student is doing a paper, they got two options. They can look at the answer in the mark scheme, and very often it's kind of like, well, why is it that? Or they can just skip it. So this provides another option, an option C for you. It's like, I don't know how to do this. I'll click the question in Sidekick, and that's going to help me. I've written these basically like if a student was sat next to me and they couldn't do that question, I basically put into Sidekick what I would ask that student or what I would say to that student, rather than as a tutor, I wouldn't just give them the answer. I'd help them figure it out. Okay. And that's what Sidekick does. And it works especially well for those deduction style questions. So if we go into Sidekick, okay, and we Sidekick a paper. You pick a paper you want to do. You can filter by subject and what year, but we're just going to go down and pick, let's pick a chemistry one. I like chemistry. So chemistry paper 2, 2020, boom. What you'll do is you'll be brought to this page. Now, each block represents a question in the exam. You can download the paper from here as well. So all the exam papers, and then you can start doing your paper, okay, and practicing those questions. And if at any point you feel like you're stuck and you need a bit of help, or indeed if you've done it, you think, well, just check if I'm right, then you can just click show clue. So this is a question, a recall question. It's a practical question. This is the topic that it's on. So show the clue. So this here, okay, tells you like how to go about answering that question. Obviously we can't see the question here because you'll have the paper in front of you. You'll see the question. But here is the advice that I give. Okay, so it may be like, oh, it's that. Okay, and so you do know the answer to the question. Even with calculations, let's see if we can find a calculation one. Practical deduction. So in a deduction question, okay, show the clue for that. What's causing the amount of sewage to increase? Now that doesn't make any sense on its own right now, but if you've got the paper that's sat in front of you, that's basically, it's me asking you the same question, but in a slightly different way. And you're going, oh, is that what they mean? So you're learning how to answer these questions. Where's a calculation one? Come on. Where is a calculation one? There we go. Okay, so you're doing calculations. This is about formulations and chromatography. So this tells you how to calculate RF, okay, and how to rearrange that equation. So if you didn't know how to do that, this will be here going, right, this is what you need to do in order to do it. And you can see the answer as well if you choose to, okay. So from here, once you've finished your paper, you don't have to go through every single one. You can literally go there to 8.5 if you want. When you're done, you click mark paper, okay. Now if you click mark paper, and you can actually go into your members homepage, and if you've done a paper without Sidekick, you can find the paper and mark it from there. But once you're doing this, you can mark it, and what this does is it makes it so easy to mark your paper, okay. Now normally when you mark a paper, you just get your final grade at the end. It does that, but it does so much more. So all you see is the answer here. You can say, okay, that was the color, I got that mark. Okay, yeah, I got like 1 out of 2 on that one, or I got 2 out of 2 on that one. I didn't get that one. And you just work your way through marking your paper, okay? If you want to see the clue, this is here basically just to, like, if you look at the answer, like we said before, and go, well, why is it that? Okay, you can see how we worked it out, okay, by looking at these. So in this one, like, how did I know to write all that? Well, the clue here talked you through how to actually construct your answer for that question, okay? So you can see how the two link together. Now, when you get to the end, you have to do, I'm going to do a whole paper now, but you go to your results. These are the ones that I've started and haven't finished whilst I've been showing people this today. But let's say you go into, chemistry, okay? And you've marked your paper, you get your grade, total number of marks, okay? So this is like an average kind of mark that you need to get for this grade. And then here, I know there's lots of topics here, guys, but here you can see how you did in every single topic in this exam paper, okay? So for example, look at this. 0 out of 6 for chemical bonds, bonding and structures 0 out of 3, structure in carbon 0 out of 8. So you can see really clearly exactly which topics you need to revise next, okay, and what you need to improve on. And in order to help you do that, like I said, you've got your revision resource, you've got your kind of bite size, or you've got your textbook, or you've got your notes, or you've got like whatever on YouTube. Here, you can click on View PDF, and it will give you a PDF for that topic. So you can go, right, what do I need to know for this topic? And it tells you. So I've taken these from the specification. This is what you need to know. So in order to revise, okay, so these are the things that you can revise, like using flashcards and mind maps and your notes and stuff like that. These things here explain, these are things you need to be able to do. So these are things that you can only get good at by doing more past paper questions, and that's fine, okay? But it just tells you exactly what it is you need to know. So if you totally mullered those questions on structure and bonding in carbon, then here is literally like all killer, no filler, just exactly what it is you need to know for the exam. And of course, like if you go back to your results page, you can see how you're getting on in total. Okay, as you work through the papers, you can see what grades you've been getting, and you know whereabouts you're at really, and whether you're hitting your target grade. So let's come out of this. That's enough of that. So hopefully that's shown you like how Sidekick can help you, and if you like it, then obviously you can just subscribe. It's one payment, it's not a subscription. I've tried to make it like affordable for everybody, because I know obviously especially right now times are hard, but I've also got that for you. Okay, so that is a discount code that'll take 20% off, so it's only 20 quid. Obviously speak to your parents, obviously speak to whoever owns the card, and if you fancy getting Sidekick, and it will be there like anytime, day or night, like whether you want to revise. And it's like just having a tutor go, oh, like you can't do that question, here's a little hint for you, and then obviously you can mark your paper, and you can see what you're good at and what you're not so good at, and improve. So with all the subjects you've got to revise for your GCSEs, with all the kind of 3 subjects you've got just within science, you need to make the most of your time. This is just, I've designed it so it can help you be more efficient with your time. All right, there's just nothing more to it than that. It can help you get better at exam questions, help you learn what you need to learn, and obviously improve your confidence and save your time. It does all of these things. So hopefully you think that's worth your while, as something that it's like a perfect partner for your revision resource. That's basically it. Right, that's enough Sidekick. Let's get on with physics. So on to the next one, physics paper 1. Now again, you will see and you'll notice that unlike chemistry, there's a big spread. I mean, there's clearly their favorite topics that they put in every year. But the other thing I want you to notice, just look at the sheer volume of marks that are attributed to calculations. I mean, we kind of already knew this, right? We kind of already knew that physics was more calculation based, but here's the facts, all right? So what are the top 3 things? Energy calculations, okay? So that is these bad boys, energy changes and energy transfers. I mean, just look at these. The average number of marks, okay, is 30. So nearly a third of the paper is just on energy, and most of that is calculations. So know your energy changes, know your different types of energy, work on those questions, and work with those calculations and those equations you need to use. Next up, resistance, current, potential difference, and resistance. I mean, it's just a huge number of marks attributed to this per paper, usually linked with series and parallel circuits. But like they're not going to ask, you're doing higher tier, right? Separate science. They're not going to ask you what's a parallel circuit, what's a series circuit, okay? They're going to be getting you to work with them, and that's where current, potential difference, and resistance comes in. Now, lastly, know your particle model. Why? Because of this. Changes of state, okay? Changes of state and the particle model, 15 marks attributed to that with recall and 15 with calculation, not to mention the 8 in there for deduction questions. So they love, love, love this for your paper 1 physics, okay? Other honorable mentions in here are these 2 down the bottom, okay? I mean, this is about energy again, so that kind of links in with all the energy we talked about before. And the particle model and pressure links in with your changes of state and particle model. You can see the average number of marks that they have is quite high, but they don't appear all the time, but just, don't neglect those is what I'm saying. Your practicals, classics, measuring density, so putting things in water, measuring the displacement and so on and so forth. And then resistance in circuits speaks for itself, you know, with all these marks here, calculations and deduction questions with resistance in circuits. That they're practical questions, okay? They come up all the time, okay? So remember, I'm not saying just revise these things. I'm saying give these things a little bit of extra special attention, okay? Now, lastly, physics paper 2. So again, loads and loads of calculations, loads and loads of deduction marks, fewer recall marks compared to the other subjects. Number 1, I mean, forces, and more forces, all right? Practice as many questions as you can get your hands on for forces, because then you will be having a right party in the exam, because on average, you know, it's 21 plus forces and elasticity, which is 11, so that is 32 marks. So a third of the paper on average is forces. Okay, and not least like this one down here. Look at that, even more forces and their interactions. Okay, and then you could probably link moments, levers, and gears in there with that as well. So loads and loads of marks attributed to that every single year, and just be prepared for it. And again, the only way to do that is by practicing them. But equally, you need to recall your different forces and things like that. Secondly, know your waves. Okay, so we've got electromagnetic waves here. And we've got, where's the other one? Oh, there we go. Waves in air, fluids and solids, okay? So again, between the two, that's another third of the paper, basically, okay? Not nearly 28, okay? But know your electromagnetic waves, what the series of the electromagnetic spectrum is, the relationships between like frequency and wavelength and wave speed and all that sort of stuff, because it's really important. And then lastly, the motor effect. This is something that's really just for higher students, but it's way, way up here. It's in every single year, okay? Carries a decent number of marks as well. So don't neglect the motor effect. Know your Fleming's left-hand rule. They love putting that in there. So just be prepared for that one too. Now lastly, practicals, measuring waves. They love a wave practical. So whether that's changing in direction of waves, whether that's measuring wave speed or calculating wave speed or amplitude or wavelength and frequency and all those things, they love those practicals. And secondly, they love a spring. They do love a spring, okay? And your elastic potential and your spring constant and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of those things, where are we? Forces and elasticity, calculation, these ones here. A lot of those marks are about spring constants and calculations, okay? So be prepared for those practicals. And again, I'm going to say it one more time, and I promise I won't say it again. There is no substitute for doing questions for practice, okay? And now you've got Sidekick, or you're going to get Sidekick, then that can give you the confidence just to dive in and start doing them, okay? Because I would say, and I say this all the time, if you're doing, if I said to you, right, I'm going to enter you, in September I told you I'm going to enter you into a darts competition in June, okay? You're going to follow Luke Littler into stardom. And all you've done so far was to watch YouTube videos and read books and make notes about playing darts. You'd want to get behind an ocky in front of a dartboard as soon as humanly possible if you're being entered into a competition. Why not? Why is it not the same for doing exams? Okay, get doing an exam, get familiar with it, and get ready for the summer. Okay, and I'm not just saying that. That is 20 years of my teaching and tutoring experience in science and for GCSE and A level, and it works. It really works. Talk to the top students, the ones who got the top grades last year. One of the first things they'll tell you, do past papers. Okay, that is, and I see it on TikTok all the time actually. Like anybody that's kind of giving advice for revision and stuff like that, past papers. All right, so be brave, do it. You've got Sidekick to back you up. Okay, so if you want to sign up, nope, there's the code. Every time I get it wrong. So yeah, sign up if you want. Now, lastly, good luck with your exams, okay? If you've got any questions about Sidekick, use the contact form on the website, sidekick.co.uk, SCI. But yeah, but work hard. You don't want any regrets, okay? Don't worry, like these aren't the end of the world, okay? If they don't go as planned. The only thing, what's worse than getting a bad grade is actually thinking, oh, should have done a bit more work, really, and having regrets, okay? So just do work hard, okay? That way you'll have no regrets, whatever your grades. But equally look after yourselves. Take some time for yourself. It's, don't burn yourself out, because obviously you're no good to anybody, especially yourself in an exam at that point. So, balance it out. Okay, so do some past papers. It is the most efficient way of working. You've got Sidekick to back you up. And yeah, good luck with your exams, and look after yourself, and all the very, very best for the future. So, if you like this, if you found it useful, then just drop me a like and give it a share. If not, then don't. But yeah, good luck for your exams, guys, and honestly, do look after yourselves, and enjoy your summer as well. You'd have earned a really good break. So from me, that's it, and I'll see you soon.